Hello, everyone, and welcome to Be Bold, Fierce, Unstoppable. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis. In today's show, we have Ulrika Karlsson. Ulrika went through decades of being depressed and burnt out to eventually becoming suicidal. Her whole life was an inner struggle filled with low self-esteem, stress, severe sleeping disorders, and a deep depression that affected her relationships, health, work, money, and career. Today, she will share with us her life-changing experience as she embodied her inner wisdom, knowledge, passion, teachings, and also her global vision. Ulrika works as a feminine leadership coach, international spiritual teacher, and author, yoga therapist, and public speaker. With more than 28 years of personal and professional experience in various holistic disciplines, she primarily helps women in leadership positions who long for a more authentic, peaceful, juicy, and abundant life. Ulrika, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Zach, for having me. That was that was a great introduction. I'm always like, wow, it sounds amazing. Who is this person?
Did I go through depression? Because I feel great today.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? Yeah, and that's the fine thing. I always, when I say it, I feel the energy of it, especially when going through depression, because I went through depression for so many years. So it feels like we're not in that depressive state. So we have to be happy about it and be like, we fought the system within our mind and our body and our spirit and the system outside of us. So tell me a little bit about your depression and your story around that first. Let's start there.
So I actually have memories from when I was like 4 years old. So, and I'm 50 now. So when I was only 4 years old, I was thinking about myself and my body, that I was ugly and that I was fat and that I wasn't good enough. And apparently I had it from my mother. She had like eating disorders, but she has never, confessed to it. But she was always saying, oh, I gained some weight, or, like this. And then my father, he was always talking about that he didn't feel good enough, or that he was doubting himself and things like this. So I have memories from when I was 4 years old, like this tiny girl, pinching her stomach like this, or thinking that I was ugly. And then, over the years, I developed a lot of physical symptoms. And of course, it was like my soul that was aching and screaming at me. But of course, I didn't know this at the time. So I believed the thoughts that I had about myself and that I have developed. And during the years, I started to have like sleeping disorders. And these sleeping disorders, I also sort of adapted to, like it started that I had really hard time to relax and to fall asleep. And then I adapted to that for some years. And then, I woke up in the nights and I was awake for many hours, and then I adapted to that. But eventually I was only sleeping like 15 minutes per night. So 15 minutes per night. And I wrote a book about it, about the journey back home. So it's called 2:47 a.m., The Journey Home to My Heart. And so in this time of my life, I was only sleeping 15 minutes, right? And in each and every night, I was murdered and slaughtered and tortured in the dream that I had. So I wake up every night with this sort of silent scream, and with a taste of blood in my mouth, and my heart was pounding. And when I watch the alarm clock, it's like 2:47 a.m. And I remember that, I fell asleep like 2:32. So that's 15 minutes. And I had this for decades. And of course, if you don't sleep well for some time, your body will manage. But if it's for a long time, then it wears you out. And so I became depressed and burnout and suicidal. And I had a lot of eating disorders also that I was sort of trying to fix with a lot of like exercising heavy and always being busy, always running around and doing a lot of things. And the less that I slept, the more I did.
Right.
So it was like this for, decades, for many, many years. And that was my like normal state. I didn't know anything else. And on top of this, I had all these images about myself, or these beliefs about myself, that I was no good, that I was fat, that I was so full of self-hatred and self-loathing and disdain. So when I was looking into the mirror and I saw my eyes, I couldn't even look, because there was so much self-loathing and so much pain. So this took me to that I wanted to commit suicide, and I had all these pills in my bathroom cabinet, pills for depression, pills for sleeping disorders, pills for anxiety attacks, pills for this and that. So I was, pretty much on a daily basis, like after this 15 minutes of sleep in the mornings, just when I have, my kids were off to kindergarten, and my husband at the time, he was working. So I was standing there and just looking at these pills every day.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a heavy time, and it was for a very long period of time as well. So it was not only, for a couple of months. This was my life for many decades.
So, this sounds so familiar, especially the day and age that we're going through, with suicide being on a rise, depression being on a rise, uncertainty and anxiety being on a rise. I'm getting goosebumps saying this, because I understand that it'll probably hit home for a lot of people that have lost their jobs. They don't know which way to go. Being at home with their spouse that's not getting along. All these different things come up when I'm hearing your story, because there's so many additional things that we're looking at as a collective, as an empath yourself. It's like, we're feeling this, and you were raised in a home with these patterns and beliefs of not enoughness, not a good, not skinny enough, like totally dietary issues from a young age. That's like a belief system that was imprinted in you from mom and dad. It wasn't even another external device. So imagine having the TV and billboards, and now you have peers going on. Like, I feel sorry for kids these days. I've always said that. I feel sorry for kids these days, because not only do they have a parental issue, like example, what you went through, but now they have social media, they have billboards, they have magazines, they have all this cropping, making everyone look skinny, making everyone look flawless, but they don't realize the real depth of everything. So what was your aha moment? Because you were married and had kids by this point.
Yeah, my kids were very young. And so one of the greatest aha moments that I had was, and I'm writing about it in the book also, was so I came to this point where, it was like I cornered myself into a prison, and I had this feeling about myself that I was like a rat lying in a dungeon with, pus coming from all the body cavities, and I was bleeding, and I was like scabby, and people were walking by and just kicking at me, and I was lying there, in a fetus position. So this was my self-image about myself. And it came to a point where I told my husband at the time that, because obviously I just want to tell you also that this affected my, cognitive abilities, and like I was so sensitive for any kind of sounds and any kind of light. So, if the phone was ringing, I was like jumping like a junkie all the time. Like my nervous system was always on red alert. So I'm telling my husband one day that I just, I really need to go away. I needed some silence. And we were looking up some options, because I never told him, how I truly felt about myself. I was just saying that I was tired and, low on energy, but I never told him about my nightmares, even though we slept together. And I never told him about my suicidal thoughts, because I was very much alone with all these thoughts that I was having, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I'm going away to the Swedish archipelago for a couple of days. And my mom and my dad, they have this cabin in the Swedish archipelago. And it's winter time, and I come there and I have this belief that, wow, now I'm going to get some rest. Now I'm going to sleep. But of course I didn't. So I had to turn off, the fridge, the radio, everything, because I couldn't stand any sounds at all.
Mm.
And so it's early morning, and it's a beautiful winter's day, and I feel something within me. It's like a volcano that's about to have an eruption, and it scares the shit out of me. I have no idea what it is. I just know that it's terrifying. So I do what I do best. I try to run away from it. Like, I was out walking in this beautiful winter's day in the forest. I was all by myself, and I had this really, high pace, because of course I wanted to burn calories, as the eating disorders that I had, that was eating me alive as well. And then I just feel something sort of snap within me, and I feel like a tidal wave arise, and I get so scared. So I walk even faster, and I try to ignore it, and I try to not think about it, not feel it, but I can't. So it's so big, and all of a sudden it's like I'm having this knife, this dagger in my chest. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. And I also remember that I'm thinking, oh, the snow is coming up, to hit my face. But obviously it's me falling down into the snow, and I'm lying there holding my heart and thinking, I'm going to die here in this snowpack. I'm all by myself. Nobody knows where I am. And then I hear this, then there's like another snap, and something breaks within me, and I hear this terrifying, absolutely horrible noises and screams and like guttural sounds. And I'm thinking, okay, so I'm having a heart attack, and like there's a wolf, or like a beast coming for me at the same time. And then it turns out that it's me, my words, my sounds, my screams, my like animalistic voices that is coming up, and this intense pain. So I'm lying in this fetus position with the hands over my chest, and I'm hearing all these funny noises and screams and roars that are coming from deep within me.
Mm-hmm.
And I lose track of time and space. And when I finally, and at the same time, tears are just like pouring, like, just pouring, just dwelling from, and there's so many sensations at the same time when I'm lying there, and I just try, to hold myself together and, not to burst even more. And then eventually, like when the crying is subsiding, and the breathing is back to more normal, and then it's pitch dark.
Wow.
So I've been lying there for hours and hours in this snowpack, and coming and going from different emotions, passing through me and being expressed with all these grunts and scary noises. And then when I come back to my senses, it is so still in my head. And I, for the first time in decades, feel still also inside, like at peace, like very quiet, a big calmness. And, so I sort of pull myself up from the snow, and it's like all my senses are enhanced, like I can see, shapes and forms in the pitch black, and I can hear like snowflakes still falling, and I can hear, somebody's talking very long time far away. So it's like all my senses are enhanced, but still this enormous sort of a still expansion. I don't know what to call it, but it was like a still and calm expansion. So I drag myself home, and I can't even, I'm very wobbly and I can't walk fast. So I'm taking it very slowly, and then I go back to the cabin. And then I keep it dark, and I just go into the shower. But it's not like I'm cold. It's on the contrary. It's like I'm burning from the
Mhm.
inside.
Mhm.
So I'm sitting there in the shower, and it's all pitch dark, and I'm just sitting there, and it's still completely silent. And this very unfamiliar feeling of this silence and peace in expansion. And so I sit there all night in the dark, in a wobbling chair in front of the dark winter's nights, just looking out through the window. And for the first time, I really and truly feel something else that I've experienced for, like many decades. So this was a big turning point for me. And when I speak about it now, it was like my first encounter with God or source or the life force or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, whew, that's deep, because those dreams that you had, your subconscious mind was telling you there's something inside you that's, roaring to come out. Yet, going through it, we don't know what we're experiencing at that time. I've had the same dreams of just, I always say Satan was coming after me, like trying to get me, trying to pull me down. And as you're saying these dreams, I could just visualize and feel like your whole body seizing, because you just don't know what's happening to you. Did the dream subside after you left the cabin, or did they continue while you were in the cabin?
They subsided eventually. They subsided, and but I really, even though that they lingered for a while, it was more like an echo, or because then my journey, coming back to myself started, and to feel all these suppressed emotions and suppressed traumas that I've been through, and to feel it all and to go through it all. So um, but for me personally, and also the way that I work, is like everything that you have experienced, like in this lifetime or also previous lifetimes, is stored within you, within your body.
Mhm.
And the body represents the unconscious mind. So that's why we have so many people that are being burnout or sick or migraine or cancer or whatever, because there's traumas or accumulated stress and unresolved feelings that hasn't been processed, that are lingering within the body.
Yes.
And then so this whole process of coming back into my heart, that's the name of the title of the book, 2:47 a.m. The Journey Home to My Heart, was also a lot about feeling all of these emotions and letting them like pass through me to be felt, so I could embrace them and transform them. And for me personally, I feel, and my belief is that the more I can transform of my own inner darkness, right, the more access I have to my inner light.
Amen.
Yeah, because there are polarities, and I cannot only be in the bubble or have positive affirmations and not to think about the darkness, because
Mhm.
then the light is not anchored within me. It's like a mental, an illusion of love and light, because the body is where the magic happens, and when we need to transform everything that we have stored. So for me, it is like the more of my own wounds that I have healed, and the more darkness that I've been through, the more access I have to love, light, and compassion for myself and others. But my God, let me tell you, the process also about forgiving myself, that was a very like hard nut to crack, because nobody made me to who I was. It was my own beliefs and my own actions and my own self-hatred and my own illusions, really.
Yeah, it's our own narrative that holds us back, but they're taught narratives that are bestowed upon us, but we become
Exactly.
the owner of that narrative. So you owned a narrative that didn't even belong to you. And that's the sad part. Like, as kids, we have the vision of who our parents are and how superheroes they are. And I always said our parents Our parents taught us what we don't want so we could unlearn that to learn what we truly want or who we truly are. So when you were coming out of this is the question that was lingering in my head as you were talking. What was the first thing that you learned about yourself, dissolving that dark energy into light energy? What was the first thing that came to you and said, Ulrika, this is what?
So there were many things. One thing was that I can see now that I have always been guided by, by my soul, by the higher perspective of who I am. Of course, I didn't see this at the time. At the time, I was like the victim. Why is this happening to me? Instead of what have I been doing to myself? Because even though that we are conditioned, as you say, from our parents and from their parents and from their parents, it is also my own responsibility to deal with it. And most of us, we don't.
Because we don't know. We don't
know exactly. So that was one thing. And then one thing was, oh my God, how much trauma and stress we are all carrying around, and we are not even conscious about it.
Right.
So that was also like a big revelation, because it's not only like I'm carrying myself and what I've been through in this lifetime and my experience here. I'm also carrying around, my ancestors, both burdens and also the gems. So, and I also think that you are only given what you can handle and navigate at the time. And if you cannot, or believe or are in delusion that you cannot navigate, then you only, get small portions of it. But if you're open to it, it's like you can open Pandora's box and face whatever it is, because we are, my gosh, Zach, we are so strong. Like, we are from source. We are gods and goddesses in human bodies. We are the creators. And as well as I was creating my own misery, right? Then it occurred to me, wow, if I can create that unknowingly and unconsciously for myself, what can I create consciously, right?
Yeah, I when you're saying it, I kept on hearing the word magnificent.
Yeah.
We are magnificent beings that haven't even tapped into our magnificence in regards to even go from that energetic force to be the truth of who we are, because we still have these underlining narratives that we may still say to ourselves. And in those underlining narratives, it's like, why is this still lingering when I felt like I cleared that 5 years ago, but why is this still lingering, not allowing me to see my magnificent self? So that's the word that I got. We are magnificent beings. And it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because listening to your story, it's like, yep, I could feel that one. Yeah, I could feel that one. It hits the heart when you're growing up and you can't really fully express yourself because you don't even know how to express yourself without someone saying or judging you, the judgment. So you fall into this deep depression, or you fall into this stress, you fall into anxiety, you fall into sleepless nights. Boy, have I had sleepless nights. You think of the suicidal thoughts, like all that erupts in you. So did you find your solace while you were in the cabin?
I found like it was the turning point. Like I knew that I had to resign. Like there was so many events, and it was like domino, effects or ripple effects on the water. Like I did one. So this trip to the Swedish archipelago was the one that set it all off. And then, my husband, he wanted to divorce me, and there I was depressed, so and suicidal, and he wanted to divorce me, and we had 2 little kids at the time. And I also had a relative that I was quite close to that died. So here I found myself. I was like divorced, I was depressed, and I didn't have any money, like all the welfare. I had been depressed for so many years, so like the money for me was out. And so there I find myself, you know, and I remember thinking, my God, like here I am, 35 years old, and I'm never ever gonna find anybody to love, because who wants me? You know, I'm secondhand, I'm bruised, I'm damaged good, and hell, I don't want to even be close to myself. So the domino effects and the ripple effects was that I started to search for how to heal myself. So obviously I was looking, you know, for outer guidance or, you know, outer information, but I knew that the work I needed to do was to move inwards and to heal myself, and to not to fix anything really, but to heal and to accept and to love all my broken pieces, and sort of, you know, all this brokenness to become whole in that brokenness, that sacredness. So, and I went to a lot of therapy, and I went to silent retreats where I was sitting for 10 days in total silence, and you were not allowed to have eye contact to anybody. You were not allowed to listen to radio. You're not allowed to write anything.
Yeah, I've been there.
So 10 days, like we woke up 4 o'clock in the morning and we were going on till like 9 o'clock in the evenings for 10 days. So there was no, you know, escape. There were no distractions, nowhere you could distract yourself, no strategies that you could use but to face yourself. And at that first time, I actually met God, like the God in me. I also met the polarity, of course, because you can never, they come in couples, sort of. You cannot just only meet the one and not the other. So I faced like the devil in me, and how hard I've been to myself, and this always whipping myself and punishing myself. So I had to deal with that and face that, so I also could meet God or source or my soul, my higher and inner wisdom and knowing. And the funny thing is that I remembered that I had this clear thought and insight, which also, you know, sort of vibrated in the body. So it was not only a thought, it was like, and I remembered thinking, oh my God, it's not me who is sick. My soul is so perfectly, you know, healthy and sane. It is my behavior that has been so fucked up. It is my behavior that is sick, my thoughts that have been sick, the way that I have looked upon myself that have been sick and fucked up. So that was a big revelation, that I, you know, at my core level, I am not sick and I have not been sick. It is just my fucked up behaviors that have led to the illusion. And for this wake up call that I'm grateful for today, like, can I read from the background?
Of course you can.
Yes, it's like 2:47 a.m. The red digital numbers light up my eyes. Where am I? I breathe in total panic. I'm gulping for air. I can't seem to get any air at all. It feels like I'm going to die. 2:47 a.m. The Journey Home to My Heart is an autobiography describing a deep inner transformational journey from pain and utter despair to enlightenment, a new life guided by the heart. From a very vulnerable space, Karlsson invites the reader to share her remarkable journey, an 11-year-long transformation from feeling suicidal to becoming a highly regarded spiritual teacher, sharing her message across the globe. And then I say, so my sexual and spiritual awakening has been a deeply profound experience on my healing journey towards the full retrieval of myself. So it's not also about like a spiritual, like in a mental, because many people that are being spiritual, this is my belief, my maybe limited belief, I don't know, but many people that are spiritual are very spiritual in a mental sort of way. But to be spiritual and also sexually awakened, you need, you know, to combine the body, mind, spirits. It's not, you cannot only be in the mental spheres, because then it's not anchored within your body. So this long journey of mine was actually to move from head space to heart space. I mean, it's such a short distance, like how many inches is it?
Short distance, but a long journey.
A long journey and a very like arduous journey.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to face all these fears and all these like stress and traumas that we've been talking about. It takes a lot of courage. And also like you're from Canada, so
Yeah.
I guess you speak French.
No.
You don't? Okay. But the
No.
word like heart in French is la coeur. So the word courage comes from, being in the heart, to be scared, but to do it anyway.
Mm. Now, as you were speaking, I just kept on feeling, did you have any physical health issues while you were going through this, other than the weight issue? Did you have any other physical issues, that a liver issue, a kidney issue, a digestive issue, anything like that? Because stress, anxiety, panic, depression, all those lower vibrations find a weak body to attach to an attack.
Yeah.
So being someone that went through so much for so many years, like I went through cancer in my throat because I had to learn how to speak up.
Yeah.
So did you experience anything like that?
Like my weak links have always been my sleep
Okay.
and eczema. I'm like, very healthy. Like even though that when I was so depressed, well, I was, I was like constipated. That was, and eczema and sleeping disorders, but I didn't have any, like the pain that I felt, from my wounded heart was the only pain that I had. But it was basically physically, like you can't feel that you're not aligned with who you are at a soul level and not feel it in the body. But I didn't have any like, but I know that if I would have continued to live this life, then I'm sure that I would have got cancer and heart, cardiovascular diseases, or anything on top of what I've already had. So eating disorders, sleeping disorders, and eczema was my weak links.
As the kryptonites. So let's talk about cracking open the heart, because just saying it makes me sweat, and the reason I say it is because we hold everything in our heart. We hold our fears, we hold our hurts, we hold our anger. So now you have decided, I'm going from my head into my heart. It's a short distance, but a long journey. So how did it feel to crack open that heart and start loving yourself again?
Well, I would lie if I'd say that it was an easy and pleasant journey. And it was like, the more that I allowed myself to open, the more wounds and the more traumas and the more pain came up. But and sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, what did I think of, to choose this life? I mean, why couldn't I just choose to be, a banana picker in like Costa Rica or whatever? But like, why did I choose this way? Because it's like once you start to move on your path, there's no turning back. Like I can never go back. I cannot be the ignorant and unconscious being that I was.
Sure.
So it's been challenging. It's been hard. It's been, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like I lost many friends, family members. There's been a split. I mean, there was this divorce with my husband and, my children's father, and a lot of people left me. And the hardest thing was really to feel all these like cocktail of emotions that just comes to the surface, and the more you feel, the more comes up, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt for how I've treated myself and therefore also others, a lot of anger, and this pain, and like only I still need to let the emotions just to move through me, as I'm the filter for all these emotions. Like just like 2 days ago, I was considering also what is going on in the world today. I was like, I'm so tired of humanity. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here. I want to go home to my, to planet where my soul is originated from. I don't want to be here. And I was just crying and crying and feeling this like stab of a dagger or a knife in my heart.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of, for me, there's been a lot of physical pain, and also to move through the emotions by feeling them, not to suppress them, not
Mhm.
to disguise them, not to distract them, not to diminish them, or just, they're in your face, you feel them, and so they're yours to navigate through.
Yeah, you need to claim it, to recognize it, to release it. This is very important, because a lot of people that start going on the spiritual journey, especially the last year, a lot of people decided to go on a spiritual journey. I know tons of people that literally got rid of their social media, got rid of everyone, and it's almost like everybody went to um, to the mountain, of their own mountain, to kind of heal themselves, and you have to respect that. But one thing that, when we go through the spiritual journey, and you just said it, is that we lose a lot of people around us because they don't understand what we're going through. They don't understand the emotion that we're dealing with in that just be moment. And I love that just be. When I was in Costa Rica, I was in Panama. I did 21 days of camping in Panama, and we did a lot of tribal medicine. And I remember a shaman said to me, Zach, just be. And I'm like, what is she talking about? Just be. And she's like, just be. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like, what's wrong with you? But she was actually 3 days ahead of my emotion that I was experiencing at that time. And I was going through the emotion of everything. And that day, I remember sleeping in my tent, and I woke up and somebody said, stay in your tent today. But everything inside of me was fighting to stay away from my tent rather than just be in my tent. It was like, no, I don't want to be in my tent. No, like all this inner battle was happening. So I ended up leaving the campsite. It took me about 4 hours to get to where I needed to go. By the time I got to where I wanted to go back to my campsite, but I couldn't get there because that moment was done. You know what I mean? So just being in it is feeling in it. And I wish I understood that a little deeper within my own soul, to say, this is all coming up because you're living in the jungle. You're living in it. So it's that just be moment that allows us to feel that blah. That's the only way you could describe it, is just blah. But everyone needs to understand that we do lose people along the way when we go through spiritual awakening, because every time, sure, you have it with your clients too. My clients come and say, oh, I lost more friends. And I said, yeah, tell them that's great. That's fine. She goes, are you kidding me? I have no friends now. And I said, don't worry, the right ones will show up. She goes, how long have you been dealing with this? I said, you just get used to hanging out by yourself after a while.
Exactly, exactly. But as you say, also, like, the journey in itself is a very lonely journey, because
Yeah.
even though that you have like teachers, or you have, like, I didn't have anybody to talk to, or
Mhm.
I didn't have any, my parents or friends, or I couldn't talk to my like ex-husband. So it's also not only a challenging journey, like, for everything that you have to face, but you feel like, I felt like I was the most loneliest person at earth. I could sit on a bus, or be with people and just see them, but I was like I wasn't included, like I was. And I even remember, like, we had a like somebody's birthday, my family, my big family with cousins and everything. And I remember, I mean, it was people that known me since I was a baby, and not friends that you have chosen, but family. And I just zoomed out. I just got this really, it was like I was sort of looking through a thin straw, and
Mhm.
like I sort of vanished through this straw, and I was looking at everybody else like, I'm not included. I'm not, you know,
Mhm.
I'm not here. I'm like invisible. I'm no, not invisible. How do you say? Nobody see, nobody see me and what I'm going through or how I feel.
Yeah. I
It's
think
like
we've
I'm,
all been there. I think a lot of us have been there, because there's times I've been at family events and I don't feel anyone's even said two words to me. I don't even think half the people even said hi to me. Like, so it is that invisible feeling.
yeah.
And this is why I'm bringing this up, because it's normal,
Mm.
which sounds so abnormal.
Exactly.
to be going through this. And that's where I think, did you journal at that time? Did you know to journal? Did it come to you?
No, I didn't. I started to investigate yoga. And so I did a lot of things. I went to therapy. I did these silent retreats like 3 times, all with different experiences. I started to study yoga and to develop my own kind of yoga, because the yoga that was at the market at the time was too much in the masculine energy. It was too structured, too heavy, too hard if you had a lot of pain in your body or your soul. So I developed my own kind of yoga for empaths and for highly sensitive people. And so sort of, pulling myself, like retrieving myself step by step. And yeah, I would also lie if I'd say like it was a quick fix, a quick journey into my heart, like, with decades of feeling a lot of self-hatred, it's taking me some time to really come back home, and with all these pieces of the puzzles that I have sort of come together, and to align myself with who I am. But also, like, I was too sick to have a normal job. I couldn't go back to my job. I'm physiotherapist, and I'm also a preschool teacher, but I couldn't go back. So I had to sort of invent, my own job. And I'm talking about in a period when I don't have any money, and I'm all by myself. I don't have a support group. So I'm like inventing my job as I'm healing myself, sort of. So it was on so many different levels of coming back home, and to become whole, which we always are. We're always whole, but we have just forgotten it, or we have the illusion that we are not whole, because we are always whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in our suffering role, we don't realize that,
Exactly.
because you feel so broken. But yeah, even, I've said that. I remember when I was going through depression, and when I was going through depression, I wanted to scratch my face off. Like, I would just get up in the middle of the night and just scratch my face. And I said, what is going on? This is a new symptom I have. And I'll never forget, I just kept on hearing breathe, breathe, breathe. I couldn't sleep. I maybe slept 20 minutes a day. I couldn't move. My body was going through aches. So that was the time, like, suicide was constantly on my mind. It was like, I'm better off just putting myself out of misery. But then, my niece would show up. She was 3 years old, and she would be so excited to see me. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to live off your joy for a minute, because my joy is just not there. Mm-hmm. So having her, I think, saved me. It was like God brought me my niece to save me, and she would pull me out of bed. But meanwhile, I just wanted to scratch my face off. And it was hard to just be in that moment. So suicide, I think there's a thought process that we go through, but we don't realize is that when we tap back into ourselves, it's like, okay. And I know there was times I would be in bed and I hear, forgive yourself. And I said, how can I forgive myself? This happened to me. That happened to me. I did this. I caused that. Forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And just saying that alone, it's like you got to gasp that air and face that truth of, why the hell did I do that? What was I thinking? Obviously, I wasn't thinking.
Exactly.
Right. So it's interesting. It's like we all go through the journey. The only difference is the way the journey is played out for us.
Yeah. And I was actually also literally saved by my son. He was like 3 years old at the time. He was saving me on multiple occasions when I stood there with the pills in my hand. Yeah. And I remember also I listened to Oprah Winfrey at the time. And then, somebody on her show said like one sentence at the time that made me not to commit suicide that day. And that's also why I love to be on podcasts, because if I can say, like one word or one sentence that resonates with somebody else, and maybe brings that person back to life, then like the circle is closed. And even though if that person is only me, like if I'm alive, well and kicking, and if I'm here to do, what I'm here to do, then I'm sort of like paying back in gratitude of what I've been given, or like to close the circle, sort of.
Yeah, one stone in the water, thrown in the water to cause a ripple effect of greatness to someone else. What was
Exactly.
the greatest lesson that you learned through this journey?
I think it was this that I already said, that's my gosh, it's not me who is broken, or it's not me who is, sick. It is my behavior that has been totally fucked up.
Okay.
So that was like, that was like, wow, moment for me, because for me, I have always identified with being this, like sick or depressed or suicidal or whatever. And then I didn't even know about that I was a highly sensitive person at the time, or an empath. I learned about that a lot later. So, you get a piece of information here, and like a breadcrumb of a trail here. And it's also scary, because if you have been like a control freak, like I've been, controlling your diet or your weight or whatever, and not knowing like, okay, what's going to happen if I am not in control? Like, you know, what's my direction, or what's going to be? No, I have to be here, and I have to, fix things, or I have to be in control. But to let all the illusions go, and to really surrender, and to sink into and lean into the universe, like that there's a higher plan for you if you allow it to happen.
Absolutely. What would you say to your younger self today?
I would actually just, take her in my arms, and really just love her and hold her, and tell her again that you know i'm sorry that I'm sorry that I had you to go through this, but it's okay, you know I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
But just, to hold her like a little baby, and, also sort of just, yeah, just be there, um, as nobody was there for me. I guess that's the hard lesson, that's the journey that we all have to do ourselves. We can have like, guides, or we can have a support group or whatever, but the journey and the path is yours to move on, step by step.
Yes, it is. And it's interesting because I never had any help, because I knew that I was different from the age of 3. And I was told to hide my gift because it's embarrassing. People are gonna think you're crazy. Like all these things, and nothing ever made sense to me, because I was like, how do you not see these things? They're right there, So I've always had that. And when I see people now, I could feel their pain. So like feeling their pain is something that, I feel like it goes through my body. I penetrate through it, and I just send it love. So the next question that just came through me as I'm talking to you is like, as I'm feeling it, what does self-love mean to you?
Self-love to me is about accepting and loving all of my bits and pieces, like from the darkest side to the brightest side. And I just want to share, like, here in my third book, Holy Fuck and Sacred Water and the Secret Connections to Everything, I'm writing actually about many sort of pieces of me that I'm retrieving, or that I'm. And so self-love is to love, like, the dark fuck that I call it, like, one aspect of my personality, the one that have been suppressed for such a long time. So self-love is for me to love all of me the way I am, how much I weigh. It doesn't matter what I do, but who I am at the soul level.
Whew, yeah, it's not the size of our clothes that matters, it's the size of our heart that matters, and how we treat ourselves, right? That's beautiful. That's beautiful. What would you say to all those that are going through a difficult time right now?
I would say that that's great. This is a new beginning, a new opportunity. This is your soul that is calling you to come home to you, who you really are at the soul level. And everything's going to be fine. You just have to it sounds so easy. You just have to face your fears. You just have to feel it. You just have to cry a bit and scream a bit. You just have to go crazy.
Yeah.
And you have to put one foot in front of the other and take another breath. But wow, great. Congratulations. You are evolving.
Yeah, kick and scream through it, cry through it. Yeah, exactly. It's normal. It's normal. It may feel abnormal, but it's so normal.
It
What
is.
is the greatest advice you've heard from other people regarding going through this journey?
The greatest thing that I heard, but that I've come to understand, because it's also a difference if you just hear it and you
Yes.
don't fully grasp it in the body, but it's also like what you were into, Zach, and it's not so much about doing, but more about being. We are human beings, not human doers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We are human beings, not human doers. So just be in it,
Yeah,
reflect in it, right?
being the experience. Like we
Yeah.
are all souls in bodies having human experiences.
Do you find the more you tell your story, the more you find your soul family that has been through the same sort of mirror effective story that you've been through?
I do,
Yeah.
and it's amazing because like I can feel closer to you guys than from my original family. So
Yeah.
I do, and I truly believe also this is important, and I must say it, that the time that we are in now is also the time for global ascension, for global evolution, because we have the fears right in our face, right? Regardless if you're in Canada or in Sweden, how it looks like, with a lot of collective fears coming to the surface, a lot of worries, a lot of anxieties. So this is a time where, from the yogic perspective or natural tribes, they have been talking about this for centuries, that this time will come, and we are here. We are in the midst of the greatest evolution that we've seen as human beings. And so it's time for each and one of us to wake up and to, how this is saying in English, it slipped my mind, but wake up and feel the reality,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
come
yeah.
out of matrix.
Come out of the and that's exactly what it is. This is about leaving the 3D world and stepping into your 5D consciousness. And the
Exactly.
more that we allow ourselves to step in that 5D consciousness, the more we realize that this is just a body, but
Yeah,
there's something greater within us, because the fears are thrown at us 24/7. We're not realizing that fear is playing in our body and our mind, our spirit, when we're even sleeping. I'm driving and then there's this billboard. I'm not going to even say what the billboard says because I don't want to give energy to it. And I'm just cursing at this billboard, or you get, and it doesn't say put your seatbelt on to protect your life. It says something else that's not
yeah,
protecting your life, right?
exactly.
So then you have this billboard, then you have this, if you listen to the radio, I haven't turned on the radio since February of 2020. I don't listen to the radio anymore. I download music and I listen to that, because it was a constant. Every 3 minutes they're saying something on the radio, so that pattern and belief system was being worked upon constantly. And the worst thing
Exactly.
anyone could do is watch the news before you go to bed,
Mm.
because now you have that news penetrating through your body, through your mind, and you're sleeping thinking, I'm only going to sleep. But people don't realize that that's when you process the most stuff. And for you and for me, both of us, we've had these horror, I call it poltergeist. Like, people watch horror movies. I've lived horror movies. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly.
So it's this constant pension. So when you're talking about the global awakening, it's like, the light is becoming bright, but there's no one that could show you your light more than you. We could guide you to your light. We could give you your eyes so you could see the light, but it's up to you to attain your light, just like how you did it through your journey. And I mean, you were flat on snow doing this from day till dawn, right? So
Yeah.
if that doesn't tell you how long this process took, I don't know what will tell you this. So it's crazy in the global consciousness right now. There's a lot of different energies going on too. I try to avoid all of that noise. I try to pretend I don't see things, even though God says, look to the right and look to the left. And I'm like, I don't want to look left or right. I'm just going to look straight right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, dear Jesus, please, something change, shift, awaken, expand, you know? But the more we tell our story, this is what I love about podcasting, because the more we tell our story, the more people understand, or even if they pick a little, you know, tidbit from it that could change their life.
Exactly.
Like you said, that's all that truly matters, because depression is, I've always said depression is the absence of the spirit and the awakening of the ego. So it's time to put the ego to sleep and awaken your spirit, because the spirit is mind, body, spirit. It's the connective of one.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And like for each and one of us that goes through this journey, like you have had yours and I've had mine, we are contributing for the global ascension and for the global awakening. So that's why it's on both like the microcosmos, the individual level, and also like the collective, the macrocosmos. So each and one of us that are raising our vibration by pulling sort of the roots from the weeds, like all the low frequency energies like fears, worries, and to pull them out, to feel them, to embrace them, we are sort of, you know, contributing to the awareness and to the global evolution. So it's an important job. That's why we're here. Like that's why we are here as souls, because we have, each and one of us, chosen at a soul level to be here at this time.
Yes. And did you have something to say?
Yeah, and we all have different assignments.
Yes.
So each and one of us have, you know, equal important roles, but with different assignments.
Very much so. But I wanted to go back to the shame and the fear and all that stuff of pulling it out through the root. And I want, like, shame and guilt are the lowest of consciousness. So it's the darkest energy that you could actually be holding on to. I always call it enemy's energy. Well, I use a different name, but I'm not going to use that name because it scares a lot of people. But I'm going to call it the enemy's energy, because it's the enemy that's holding you down. And if you don't release that shame and that guilt, it's going to be harder for man to even open their eyes to the light. So
exactly,
it's great that, you know, we're courageous enough to tell our story, because your story is big. You're talking about, you know, anorexia, and you're talking about eating disorders, and you're talking about depression, you're talking about suicide. We all go through that. But when we're going through it, we feel like we're the only ones going through it.
Yes. That's the lonely part.
Yeah. If you could give, I know I said this before, but it's coming back again, in a tweet, if you could write a short tweet right now to humanity, what would that tweet say?
It is actually my motto that I teach and guide. So it's like 3 words: relax, release, receive.
Relax, release, receive.
Exactly, because when we are always in the like autonomic nervous system, we are always on the go, we're always in our minds, we're always, you know, planning ahead, we are always coming up with solutions, we're always into the next project. We are in the activated autonomic nervous system. So what we need to do is to relax first, to come into the parasympathetic nervous system, to relax. And when I'm relaxed, then I can start to release these old traumas, like pulling it up from the weeds, the roots from the weeds. Like if I have a garden and it's full of weeds, I cannot just, you know, put new seeds into the garden. First, I have to pull up the roots of the weeds so I can plant. So this is what I'm doing with releasing. That's the release part. And then the garden is open for you to receive.
Amen. We're all about receiving here.
Yeah.
We're all about receiving. Ooh, this was so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Could you put your books up again so they could get a good glimpse of both of your books? For a woman that never journeyed to a woman that's writing incredible books, 2:49 a.m. A Journey Home to My Heart, and Holy Fucking Sacred Water. Guys, get your copies. Everything's going to be in the show notes below. These are stories that are going to change your life. It's going to change your mind. It's going to change your vibrational frequency. Especially in this day and age, we have to shine our light in order to see humanity. I'm getting goosebumps saying this because I know the spirit is deep within each and every one of us. And the spirit is looking to come out. Regardless of what your belief system is, your greatest belief is that you are magnificent and you have the power and the strength, regardless of what you're going through in your life. You have the power and the strength to get yourself out of it. So if you feel like you need some guidance in your life, the show notes are below are going to give you any further information. Or if you want to do it on your own, you could do that as well. But God has given you the resources, universe has given you the resources to find the help for people that have gone through journeys, that have lived through the enemy, that have fought the enemy, and that could help you pass the enemy so much easier. So Ulrika, thank you so much once again. This has been such a pleasure. Like I'm saying, I got goosebumps. I want to cry tears of joy because it's like doing these podcasts, it brings my soul family together. And this is the most beautiful thing for me.
And I'm truly grateful too. It feels like I know you, that like this is the first time that we talk and we see each other. So it truly feels like I know you. And thank you for having me. And thank you also for listening. And I just want to say also, like you said it so beautifully, but we are souls. We are from source. And we just have these human bodies with that all the experiences. So we are the same elements that you can see, you know, out in the universe. You are stardust.
Yeah, we are the galaxy. I always say that we are the galaxy.
Exactly.
The cosmic galaxy. And I mean, I could open up a whole other podcast on that one.
Yeah, let's do that.
Especially when it comes to astro projection and going into the galaxy and just cruising the galaxies and being like, wow, this is magnificent. You know what I mean? So as soon as you say that, it's like, it brought me back to my astral projection I did a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, where am I going? I hear in the galaxy. And I was like, this is beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We're galactic beings, divine beings.
We're galactic beings. Exactly. We're galactic beings. Thank you everyone for listening. We look forward to seeing you again. Until next time, have yourself a great day. Bye for now.